Okay, so I think we can go ahead, right?
Right.
So Carrie, I assume, gee, we have everybody on screen too. You've got the roll call and I assume we don't have any citizens petitions.
No,
So
we
the
do.
next-
Hold on here. We have
Oh.
somebody.
Okay,
I'm going to bring him in now.
okay.
Looks like Mia.
Is that somebody, Mia Batoni?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
she's on mute. Could you?
I've got the blank screen that says Mia Batoni, but no face.
Greg, when she comes on, would you have her say her name and address for me?
Yeah.
Thank you.
If she could come on, she could speak now. Ms. Batuni.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
If you could just state your name and address, and if you want to address the sewer authority. I'm assuming that's what you're here for.
Yes, I'm just watching the meeting.
Did you want to address them with any
Uh,
concerns?
No concerns.
Okay,
Welcome to the meeting.
Carrie, do you need any other information for the minutes?
Usually
You-
we ask them to state their name and address. I have her name. If she's just watching and doesn't want to give her address, I guess we just accept that. I'm not sure.
Yes, if I could rather not give my address.
Thank you.
Are you a resident of the town?
Pawcatuck.
Pocket, I see, okay.
Okay, then let's go ahead. The next item would be approval of the minutes. I looked them over. I didn't notice anything myself that was a problem. Anybody else, or does somebody want to move to accept the minutes?
I'll so move.
I have one minor quibble. We talked about getting, you have me recorded as moving to have the town attorney weigh in about the beard thing. I did mention also that I thought it might be interesting for somebody to talk to the people in what am I trying to say? Stonington, that have a similar concern and see what their experience had been.
Right,
That's
Dave,
in the next item. That's in item 6.4.
It is, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, under old business. Okay. Fine. So I second the motion.
Thank you.
okay, thanks. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. So that's the minutes. Thank you. Let's see, now communications and bills. I'm not even sure what that agenda item is. Reports, I assume we don't have any consultant reports. Changes to sewer use, attorney's report. So Greg, I think we're on to the Public Works Director's report, and you'll, I assume, cover what the email you sent us about the attorney's comments on
Yeah,
those
I mean, we could
items.
wait until the old business section to go through each
Okay.
item individually if you want on that.
Okay. That makes sense.
For the director's report, I just had a couple things. Harry and I will be interviewing the candidate for the operations supervisor tomorrow. So hopefully that'll work out. And then the town manager has scheduled a bunch of tours of different departments for the town council and RTM. I just want to let you know that we're going to be doing the water pollution control facility on Saturday, the 19th at 9 o'clock. So Harry and I'll be leading the tour. You're more than welcome to attend if you want to come out on a Saturday morning. We'll see how many counselors actually show up, but at least they're
What
invited.
time again? That 11 o'clock,
9 o'clock,
9 o'clock, and
February 19th.
February 19th. Okay. Okay, and we're gonna meet at the office. And,
Yeah, I don't know exactly where we're going to meet yet. Probably start at the administration building.
mhm. It's going to be live, not Zoom.
At the facility.
At the facility, yeah, it's just a tour of the facility, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and Harry has a bunch of other news in his monthly report, which he can go over.
Okay, great, thanks. So Harry, you want to talk about the facility report and those various items? I think you're muted, Harry.
There we go.
There you go, yeah.
Plant is doing quite well. We continue to meet our permit requirements. Our effluent nitrogen was 129 pounds per day, which is below our permit limit. So that's good. That's a good number for this time of year with the cold weather. We had 58 call before you dig, including 10 emergencies. I know we've talked about the emergencies in the past, and these are actually during the winter, we get more real emergencies. These would have been for water line leaks. Usually water lines will freeze and leak. The pump station work, I mean, we're still waiting on parts and that sort of thing, but they are proceeding. And as a matter of fact, you know, in the interim time between the end of January and now, there actually is some work going on at the sites of Gravel Street and Goss Cove. So they are proceeding. They've finally gotten enough equipment that next month should have a report of some good progress at the stations. The Outfall Truncation project, that's like we're trying to get it off the ground, but the rain keeps kind of dashing the plans. When it rains, the plant flow goes up, and we have a harder time shutting the plant down long enough for them to do some work, because the plan is that we shut the plant down to allow them 4 hours of no discharge. And with the high flows, we don't have enough tanks to hold that 4 hours of flow back. So we keep delaying, but that's pretty imminent, that work. Either maybe the next couple of days or next week, that'll get done. I know Greg mentioned the operations supervisor. As far as the process, the flows coming in and sludge going out, that's all pretty much normal. Nothing to report with that. So I don't know, any questions about the plant?
I don't have anybody else? Nope, okay, thanks very
Okay.
much, Harry.
All right, thanks.
Okay, so we'll move on to the old business and we'll do Beard first, and then we'll talk about the sewer refunds issue. So Greg, you want to talk about what the attorney's email said?
Sure, I know you probably haven't even had a chance to look at it. I just got the email from the town attorney this afternoon, so I did forward it on. So you just at least have that. You can read it at a later time, but we'll start with the Beard Brewery. His response to that was that he didn't see anything in the town's regulations or the Connecticut general statutes for that governs the WPCA powers that would give you a right to require a sampling manhole. But he does say in the meantime, we could, go ahead and start assessing the industrial surcharge based on, the results that we have been getting. And he says, obviously, that is really going to force the issue and get some cooperation. And he further goes on to say, alternatively, we could send them a demand letter demanding compliance, and basically put them on a notification that they are discharging in violation of our regulations. And if they fail to address the issue by a certain time, we would pursue enforcement action or starting assessing the surcharge if they continue, to fail to address the issue, by some deadline. So it's kind of a couple options. And one is taking, just start sending them bills immediately for the surcharge that Harry's collecting now, or we could, have the attorney put a demand letter together saying, we're going to give you whatever time frame you feel is appropriate, and if you don't do anything, then we're going to start doing that.
Yeah. How would we decide how much to charge?
That's based on the results that we get from Harry's sampling. The BOD, TSS, and CODs. It's all in a formula that's in our regulations.
Well, where do you measure the output to assess?
We collect that out of the sewer just past their site. As it leaves their site.
I see. That's something you do each time. You'd have to open up a manhole and.
Yes, it's a sampler we place down in the manhole, and we put a flow meter in there. It's fortunate that his location, there's no upstream influence. Whatever's in that sewer is basically his effluent. So
Yeah, okay.
It's that's convenient and not always the case, I think, with other sites. But so we're able to collect a pretty discrete sample from his site.
You collect the sample and analyze it.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I'd
Hey,
like to
John?
suggest, I'd like to suggest that we go with the demand letter. I think that's a better way to do it than to simply start assessing the monetary amounts. And I think, perhaps right now we could agree on a drop dead date, so to speak, by which they have to make some tangible progress, at least toward dealing with the. Also, I just wanted to tell Greg, I did get your email. I read it, and I think probably everybody else got a chance to look at it too. And I have one question, which is sort of off the point, but are our regulations, to which he refers, are they online somewhere where we can? Because I don't have copies of them myself, but I sort of like to get them. Are they on the?
I don't know. I don't believe they are on the website. I can send those right out to you guys. I have them in a PDF.
That'd be
which I
great.
sent to the attorney.
That'd be good. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to have those. But anyway, that would be my suggestion. I'm just thinking back to my own experience as a lawyer. I think a demand letter makes the most amount of sense, especially coming from a lawyer, because that sends a message that we're serious and we want this dealt with.
Sounds, yeah. If I get a letter from a lawyer, I know it's serious indeed.
So I'm certainly open to that. I think we had a couple other items, that were in the agenda or not the agenda, the minutes from last week that might would inform my thinking about this. And those were, and Greg, I don't know if you got to follow up on them, the potentially having the conversation with Stonington to see if there was anything to learn. And the other was around, you or Harry or both of you had some concerns about the sampling just done sort of on the fly, like Harry reported to, last month. And so the question of, what it would potentially involve in cost to actually install monitoring. And I think that's important then in terms of this demand letter and being able to bill them. Obviously, we have to be able to defend the, the measurements that are used to calculate those charges.
Mhm.
So Greg, I don't know if you have any
Sure.
other information on
So
those. Or
No, I
Harry,
haven't.
I'm not sure.
I'll let Harry respond because he was going to contact the Stonington.
Right.
So
I was able to speak to him, Doug Nettleton, is the director over there. And he has a few breweries there in town, but they haven't really come onto his radar. They hadn't noticed any problems at their plant, so he didn't have any reason to pursue anything. I think I did pique his interest and he will be pursuing it, taking a look at what they're contributing. We talked about the problems we were having and, he understands, he knows the issues with breweries. He just hasn't really had a need, I guess. Nobody from his plant had reported anything to him that made him think he needed to investigate further.
Okay, so thank you for making the contact and checking in. And what about this issue of the measurements and what it would cost to put in a proper, I guess, a installed system to make the measurements? John, did you want to say?
Yeah, I just wanted in the email that we got, the lawyer said that we can't require them to put in a sampling manhole. So that would be something but it seems to me that we could certainly encourage them to do that so that it's clear that they're paying only what they need to pay. It could be part of whatever agreement that we reach in response to the demand letter. They obviously wouldn't want to take the chance of being overcharged. So I don't know how much this would cost, but I think it's something that we could certainly put into the mix. I mean, once you get, the lawyers involved and I think that certainly could be on the table. Whether or not it ends up being part of any kind of final agreement, who knows? But it certainly is worth raising with them. That would be my opinion.
But right, no, I think we had talked about asking potentially, and that's a path forward. I guess the question was, if they didn't end up being willing to pay for it, what was it going to cost us to install it?
Well, would we have to install it, or could we just do periodic checks and make, assess based on those?
Right. So I guess Harry or Greg, your thoughts, because I heard at the last meeting some reservations about the measurements that had been done, just opening up the sewer and taking sort of measurements several times, as opposed to having installed monitoring.
And which would be more cost effective?
Well, some of those issues with the sampling is because we did have several samples that just, had failed to collect or were, just not representative, not, maybe there was a malfunction with the flow meter or that sort of thing. So having something that was more reliable and definitely, I think would make it more defendable.
Could we charge them, take a charge to them for every time we have to go down in the manhole and take the sample?
Well, it could be. I mean, it does cost us to run these tests, and we send them to a lab for, just for. So yes, we do pay a lab to do these tests.
So we could charge them for that too.
Or we haven't really talked about the cost of this. the
Sample
measurements.
manhole?
Right, so it's possible that they pay for it, but it's also possible that it might be more cost effective if you can't get them to do that. Is it more cost effective and easier moving forward for the town to absorb that cost and then
Yeah.
bill based on? Then it's not like you're revisiting it or.
The more
Am I
we talk
making
about
sense?
it, the more complicated it gets, huh?
One other thing, I note that the attorney says that it's possible to amend the rules and our rules and regulations so that we could impose this sort of requirement going forward. And it seems to me that we might want to do that, so that, the next time an issue like this comes up, there won't be any question.
So, just John, on that point, I agree with you. It seems like it would make sense, but if we were to make that sort of change, would that be able to apply or not be able to apply to Beard?
can't-
Because
I can't answer that. I don't know for sure, but it seems to me that going forward, there might be other situations, in which this sort of thing crops up, and then we would be in a position that we're not in now. So it would be, I think, it wouldn't cost much to amend the regulations if that's all we would need to do. And it would be, helpful going forward if we were able to have that as a bargaining chip, that we can require that sort of expense.
Yeah. How does the cheese people come into this?
Well,
We're-
their wastewater is mixed together, so it's, we can't really separate it. We do recognize, the white milky waste coming through sometimes, so obviously that's the cheese, but I don't think that's always, I think they have other wastes also. So it's really, we can't separate it.
so
So we'll
just
we'll
clarify,
negotiate
so-
them with them as a unit.
right, so are we actually billing the owner of the building as opposed to the businesses? The owner is renting the space to Beard and the cheese company, is that right?
Correct. And we are billing the tenants, not the owner of the property.
Oh, we're billing the tenants.
Yeah, it's based on the water meter that, each business has their own water meter.
So then does that create an issue, to follow up on Dave's question, about how we bill, the brewery versus the cheese company, because we have no way to separate.
Well, we know that the extent of each one's use, so we could perhaps
Of their
do it.
water,
In other words, if Beard is using 5 times as much water or discharging 5 times as much water as the cheese company, then they pay 5 times as much. Certainly
So, if
I'm
That
not
may
saying
or may
that-
not be.
if the rules are written that way, then I'm fine with that. But, the fact that somebody's using more water doesn't necessarily mean they're putting out more waste.
Right.
Mhm.
Because
Right,
a lot of
because-
that water that they're using, I assume, is becoming beer and not coming out at all.
I think based on the last round of samplings with the cheese factory up and running, yeah, I almost think the cheese factory produces stronger wastewater than the brewery.
I
I
would
can't be
think
sure.
so.
What's that? I mean, I can't be sure, but that's what it looks like. I mean, it's much stronger wastewater this time. And the only difference that I know of is that the cheese factory is producing now.
So when you sampled previously, they weren't, it was just the brewery and not the cheese factory running?
Right. That was my understanding, that the cheese factory was not in service at that time. They were still working on it, building it or whatever.
Are they up and running now?
Yes.
Well, If we were to install one of these sampling manholes, that wouldn't, we would have, could we make one for each outflow, or would we have to do, would it be only measuring the outflow from that building?
So that's going to be difficult. I didn't realize we build that way. Because they're two sewer connections joined together on their site and then leave the property in one pipe. So that complicates.
Are the tenants two separate tenants?
Yes.
Hmm.
Is that the way we always do it? We build the tenants rather than the landlords?
I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know, John, that one. That's just the way the tax, collector has set it up. I'm not sure if there's some agreement with the property owner that they have to sign some form to say this is who you're billing. I don't know.
Hmm.
But I know they do send out, individual bills to each business.
It sure would make it easier if we could just charge the landlord, who would then have an incentive to make the tenants toe the line.
Let him
although
figure it out, huh?
I can see where, given that the current billing is based on water usage as opposed to sewage that comes out, the water, they obviously have separate water meters for the two tenants, and that allowed it to be done separately.
Right, but if you were billing the landlord, you just put them together, and then you
Right.
charge him the excess,
They
and
can, they
he
can
goes
figure
to
it
his
out.
tenant and says, "Fix this, or else you're out of here."
Mhm.
So
So I guess Greg or Harry, it seems like before we do something about this demand letter, we need to think of or find out, for example, whether we could bill a single bill to the property owner rather than separate bills to the tenants.
personally, I think we should just ask the town attorney to put some thought into how into a demand letter, how it, to whom to address it and how, because I personally, I think we should get this thing going. But that's my own thought.
I just have it occurs to me that this experience is going to inform future experiences with, let's say breweries, which are everywhere.
Mhm.
So whatever we're doing here will set a precedent.
Mhm.
Just
No,
My 2 cents.
I agree.
Yeah, well, has this issue of multiple tenants in the same property using the same sewer happened before?
I believe it has. I mean, I know there's language like in the DEP sewage requirements that allow that sort of thing. And I could think of, say, a condo sites here in town where condo units connect together and then leave the site in a single sewer pipe. I think what makes it complex here is that it's an industry, a commercial/industrial use with high strength sewage. And that's what causes the problem here. We have two high
Is this
strength
the old-
sewer. There's two high strength sewer generators going into a single line.
Do we have any other commercial activities in town? Like that?
Yeah, single pipe activities, yes.
Mhm.
They would have
it's
to be, in order for it to be an issue, they would have to be putting out excess amounts of sewage, but presumably that hasn't happened. So this is a new issue. I
well,
really
we have
think
some issue, don't we, with restaurants that put out grease or shouldn't?
Right, well, there's a separate permit system for them, and they have to do the fat oil grease removal, the FOG program.
Uh-huh.
They have to remove that at the source.
Is there another similar program that would apply to this kind of these kinds of businesses?
No, so the DEP writes the permits and, if you recall, we recently had to go through a period where we were collecting car washes. They had to sign on to these permits. Most food preparers are exempt. They don't address beer breweries really specifically. They do provide some best management practice suggestions in the permit, but the breweries themselves don't really have to register, or food preparation, which includes a brewery, don't have to register to this permit until they get to a certain size, and Beard Brewery is below that size.
I see. Thank
And I
you.
would presume the cheese factory is also, that's not a huge, they're looking for big food producing packaging factory sites.
So I guess following up on that, because that came up sort of last meeting last month, that that essentially the output from this facility was too small for that next category of sewer output. And I guess what I'm wondering is sort of how the charges would stack up. In other words, it seemed like some time back, Harry, you had given us an estimate based on the numbers you previously had of, what the additional charge to them would be. And I don't remember exactly, but I just remember sort of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, I don't have that document with me.
That's all right.
It was many thousands of dollars.
Right. So what I'm wondering is, are people who are in that next category of, industrial users who have sufficient output to be in that next permitting category that the state addresses, are they similarly paying thousands of dollars more?
They are, let me see, I might, yes, they do pay surcharges. Offhand, their billing process is kind of automated, so I don't have any numbers off the top of my head, but yes, they do pay high strength sewer use surcharges.
Okay. 'cause
Electric boat
all I,
must pay,
I'm sorry?
sorry.
electric boat must pay surcharges.
Yeah, but they don't discharge to us, so they go to the city plant.
Hmm.
So is the formula the same formula for those bigger users? I'm trying to make sure that if we go forward, we aren't somehow, let's say, charging, $10,000 a month to Beard and the Cheese Factory when we're charging, $1,000 a month to some
Right.
user who's putting out in the bigger category.
Right, it is the same formula. And I don't know when the formula was set up, but I have to believe it was based on, because the residence pays a certain charge, and that's because domestic sewage use, domestic sewage is pretty similar, and it's not as strong. So I think building off of that is where they increase the charge proportionally as those strengths increase.
I remember quite a few years ago, I've been on this thing a long time, that there were issues at Electric Boat. I think particularly some Navy people who weren't experts on all this stuff would take some equipment and wash it with oil and things like that. And I think we made them stop, or we got them to stop. I don't know as we actually charged them extra. We may have. Does anybody else have any info about that?
Would that have been at like the Midway facility, Dave? Because that would be the only EB facility that would have discharged in the town sewer. Down on Depot Road.
I think it was the sub base.
Oh, the sub base? Oh,
Yeah.
So, yeah, the sub base, they're pretty, they have a really good environmental department, and they're in constant, literally constant communication with me about anything. Like, for instance, not too long ago, they were going to be acid washing a building, and they called me to find out what to do with that rinse waste that they were going to be generating. So the people that are there now, I'm not sure what was there in the past, but the people there that are there now really keep an eye on it, and they seem to be, on top of the permits and doing all the proper things.
Mhm. Yeah, so maybe that's a good model for dealing with the beard. Or is it?
Well, how
Oh,
can
I
it
don't-
be?
yeah,
The beard has
afraid
been
not.
exactly the opposite of that.
Opposite, yeah.
They haven't wanted to be cooperative at all. So, I mean, it just seems to me that at this point, you have to get a little aggressive. You have,
Yeah.
and,
So-
If we
I
can
mean,
write some
one of the things
regulation,
about-
we can,
one of the things about a lawyer's letter is that you can write it in such a way that you can be vague where necessary as far as what you're demanding. And that's just the way it is.
Right.
I mean, the
Yeah.
fact of the matter is that they do owe us extra money. How
Mhm.
much that is maybe up to a question that has to be decided, but they do owe more money. And, if they don't want to pay it, then they have to deal with the situation one way or the other. And it just seems to me that the way to start that off is to make a demand. Otherwise, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
Because it's very clear that they're just blowing us off at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree. My concern, John, remains. I am in favor of us sending a demand letter. I find it hard to demand that they pay us when we don't know how we're going to get the information
Exactly.
to calculate what they owe us.
Right.
So I
Well,
think we need to know that before we start demanding that they pay us.
Well, okay. It seems to me that, again, that's something that the lawyer might have some input in. It seems if both entities owe the money, then there has to be a distribution so far as how much they pay. I mean, if they're both throwing it, flowing into that, then maybe they each pay half. And if they don't like it, they can fight with each other about it. But I mean,
That's
it just
one issue. That's the issue of how to split the charge
right. The
based
other
on,
is how you determine. So we take measurements on a regular basis and use that data to assess the amount that they have to pay. I mean, that's the only way we can do it. And so there's no reason why you can't say, okay, we're going to go out there every X weeks or whatever, take measurements and charge based on that. And if they don't, if they want to fight about that, I mean, no judge is going to sit there and say, well, gee, I don't think I don't think you can make them pay because I don't like the way that you're doing this. The worst that could happen is a judge might say ultimately, well, check it every week or check it every 2 weeks or whatever. But they're not going to say you can't do it because
so
it's in
I'm
the
fine
regs.
with that. Harry, if, Dave, I'll get to you in 1 minute. So Harry, if you have to go out and make measurements, let's say weekly, what would the cost to us be to do that?
Lab work, I'm just gonna guess now. I'm gonna say probably $50 to $60 for the 3 tests.
And do we have any idea the cost of the manhole system?
Right.
Well, we already own that. We already own the sampling equipment to go into the temporary, it's the temporary setup to go into a manhole. So we already own that. And the time to do it, I mean, it's probably 2 guys for 45 minutes turnaround time.
And I-
Harry
And I-
wants to talk.
Go
Nick, I'm
ahead,
not
Karen.
supposed to, but you questioned the cost and I can tell you that cost. It's two
Okay.
$14 charges and a 16 for a total of 44.
Okay, so
14s
that's
and
the
a 16.
lab, that's the lab
Correct.
charges.
Correct, for the
And
three
then,
tests, correct?
right, okay. And then Harry, in terms of the work, you said like 45 minutes, so it's not something that's going to be significantly disruptive to the facility, to your
No,
managing.
not disruptive at all.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know,
David,
the more we talk, the more it seems like there's a lot of issues we don't know that somebody else must know. And maybe we should think in terms of a consultant. Is there a
Or-
consultant who may have run into this problem for other clients elsewhere?
so what issues, Dave, are you thinking we don't know about?
Well, this business of well, for one thing, it bothers me a little bit. We're gonna bill them on, as I understand it, BOD, COD, and total suspended solids. Period. Is that really an adequate representation of what we've got to deal with? And that's one issue. Another issue is how you go about the relation between tenants and landlords, and another about what if people, you know, put two sources into the same sewer. All this stuff sounds like something that other people probably have dealt with. And if we got a contractor who, a consultant who has consulted with people about things like that, I don't know. You guys know more about the available consultants than I would, but.
So in terms of and Harry, if you have any thoughts about, I mean, those three tests are what's used in the formula to calculate the extra charge. Is that correct?
Right, those three constituents are what we need to remove from the sewage. So that's what's, you know, it generates the sludge and, you know, dictates the cost of how we're running the plant. So those are the three things we need to remove. You know, I mean, we're not looking for any, like, you know, metals or some strange chemical component. It's those are the big three that we remove from all sewage.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well-
so it sounds like I guess I think I'd like to hear. So let me say this first. For some reason, I have it in my head that as chair, I can't make motions. Is that the way things are usually?
You can ask for a
operate?
motion.
So I can ask for a motion. Okay, so so it seems like I would think that John's, you know, point about going forward with the demand layer makes sense. And so does somebody want to make a motion around that? And that the lawyer would need to make, you know, either write it such or make recommendation back to us about these issues of, you know, how to split the charges between the tenants, whether somehow that's our responsibility or the responsibility of them. You know, that's obviously an issue. And then, you know, I don't know whether we want to just put in there that we would sample once a month, once every 2 weeks, and, you know, or just leave that vague. But it sounds like we could go forward with even sampling once a week. That would be doable. That if we're then getting thousands of dollars, that would cover the costs of those lab tests. I mean, you may want to have the lawyers include, you know, the cost of the lab tests, but it's $44. That seems pretty minor for each.
So
bank
I
of
would
three.
make a motion that we ask the town attorney to draft a demand letter that we can review at our next meeting. And that Carrie should provide him with the minutes of this meeting so he can see what the concerns that were expressed here and deal with them as he would recommend. And we can discuss it at the next meeting. It wouldn't be so bad if if he attended himself.
That's what I
But
was just gonna ask. Okay.
at least we would
I
have
can ask him that.
look at.
Will he get it? Will he get a broadcast of this thing or just a written minutes?
I can
Well, I
advise him,
suppose he
'cause this
could
is all
watch-
recorded, so he could watch
The
this.
recording, yeah, okay.
But no, I would agree, is, have him put the demand letter together. We'll just leave the date blank for now.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds good. I second the motion.
Okay, any questions? That made sense to me, John. Thank you for expressing that pretty clearly. Okay, are we ready to vote? Then we had a motion, it was seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So it passes. Carrie, do you feel that you have everything clear for the minutes? Do you have anything?
I think I
Questions?
do. I can go over it with Harry just to make sure after I write them so that nothing is left out.
Okay, okay, great. Okay, so that took us a little while, so I think that gives us a reasonable path forward. I still would, Harry, is there someone you could check with about what it would cost us to install sampling apparatus such that we don't have to, send the two guys out however many often?
Yes, I can get that.
Okay, so if you could check on that, I think that might help inform, our thinking at least around reviewing this letter next month.
Okay.
I mean, I do think that really they should pay to do that, but at the moment, we don't have a clear legal, according to the lawyer, basis for requiring them to do that.
Mhm.
But, certainly the lawyer can think about including language because that would help make sure that they're billed correctly rather than whatever limitations. Okay, let's move on to the sewer use refunds. Hopefully this will be a little quicker, although I did read your email, Craig, for the lawyer's email, and I wasn't entirely clear on this one.
This section, he actually talked a lot more, but I think that's because there's a lot more sections in the regulations that maybe deal with this he had to look at. But if, reading through all this, the bottom line is as long as the homeowner gets a permit to disconnect and they disconnect it for a minimum of 6 months, then they are, do a refund, I guess, or suspension of the sewer user fee. And he's, in his words, it's suggesting that, and he quotes a certain section here, that it's not discretionary. In other words, every quarter, based on a quarter, that we would have to, if they prepaid, we'd have to give them a refund or stop the sewer use billing, for any period that's longer than 6 months. And my suspicion is the 6 month period was to avoid what I think we were talking about last time, the people that just go away for a few months to Florida and say, I'm not
They're
paying you for
seasonal.
3 months. The
Right.
seasonal people, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's,
but don't they have to have it plugged in order for this to operate? I mean, and they have to get sounds to me like he's saying they have to get a permit in order to plug it up.
correct. They have to get a
You
permit from
couldn't
the
just
building
you
department.
just couldn't go on vacation and have it plugged. I mean, you're not going to get a permit to plug it up for that reason, are you?
I wouldn't think so,
But
no,
the-
because you're going to be paying a plumber to plug it and then,
Right.
paying for the permit. And it would probably cost you more than, the few months that you're going to be thinking you're saving.
Yeah. I mean, wouldn't you need to get a permit in order to do other work? I mean, you wouldn't get a permit just because you're going on vacation. I would think anyway. That's neither here nor there. I mean, it's what I don't understand is it sounds like what they're saying is, well, yeah, you can get it, but if you leave it capped for more than a year, then you start paying again. Is that what he's saying here?
Right, that was confusing.
I mean,
The regulation
any event-
says, and I don't
it
understand that
seems to
part
me
either.
that based on this case we were talking about, they are owed a refund. So I'm just going to move that we do issue a refund for the property. I don't remember the address. Maybe you can.
It was 87 Neptune, but
87.
I thought, I
It was
looked,
98 East Shore Road.
well,
That was
not last meeting.
Last meeting was 87 Neptune.
Right.
Yeah. 80, the
Guys-
Shore Road.
I don't know,
And-
my paperwork
and-
says,
Yeah,
Yeah,
last meeting it was eight. I have the paperwork up from we were sent last meeting. But the other thing was, so this is kind of, okay, the memo, I guess, Greg, you wrote to Melissa McGuire, the tax collector,
Yeah.
said, they have, so I guess what wasn't clear was what this permit was in what the lawyer was referring to. Because you say in the memo about 87 that they had a building permit for renovations, but they didn't have a demolition permit, but the building office said they didn't need one. So, and then it says the owners never submitted a permit to disconnect the sewer, but it's been cut and capped. So I'm willing to go along with it's cut and capped. I guess it depends how fussy we want to be about this permit.
Most
I don't
of
know.
the time-
What I read sounded reasonable, the recommendation we got. I second the motion. Let's just pay it off and be done with it. It doesn't seem to me like we're taking a bath on it.
Okay, so John made a motion, Dave seconded it. Any further discussion? We done? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So I guess that takes care of that. I guess the one question to me, Greg, was it sounded like that at 12 months, they get billed again. And do we have something in place to implement that?
We'll have to check with Melissa, the tax collector, to see if she has something that, in her files or in the computer that, at 12 months, it turns it back on again or something. I'll have to get back to you. I'll have to check with her and get back to you on that.
Well,
Okay.
it starts again when they reconnect to the sewer, doesn't it?
That does for sure, but the regulations indicate that even when it's temporarily capped, for some reason, after 12 months, it starts up again.
That sounds that is that.
I'm not sure
that doesn't
why.
that doesn't sound reasonable. Is sure that's what it says?
Yeah,
That's
it's
what the
right here.
lawyer says. It says.
It's right here in the letter.
That's
Mhm.
what the email Greg forwarded us from the lawyer. That's why I didn't understand it either. It doesn't
Yeah.
make a lot of sense.
I read that section and I agree with his interpretation. It just clearly says if the plug's not removed after 12 months, the billing starts commencing again.
Huh.
Don't know why. I mean, these things were written, 30, 40 years ago. So
I think maybe we ought to tell the tenant that they'll be real surprised if it's not connected and they start getting billed.
Well,
The homeowner,
The homeowner, yeah, for 70, for 80, for Neptune, whichever way the number was, 78 or 80. I think that's a good point, Dave, that they are unlikely to know that. So anyway, Greg, you want to check in with the tax collector and then I mean, there's time here, obviously, but also maybe about some communication about the issue of the at 12 months. Letting the homeowners know that it would restart billing at 12 months.
Yeah.
And, if we need to do something, you can bring it back to us at next meeting. Okay, so on to new business. We have 98 East Shore Road refund. And, so you
I'm
want to,
gonna make a motion that we make the refund. It seems like it's something that we're sort of required to do based on the information that we've been provided.
That we did.
Pardon me?
Didn't we move on that
no, this
On
is the
No, this
new
is the
business.
new.
specific one? Okay,
Yeah,
This is 98 Shore Road.
okay.
and this looks
And-
like a matter of paperwork on our part.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's all it is.
Okay, so did somebody John, did you make a motion?
Yes, I did. I made a
Okay,
motion.
thank you. And Laura seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, so we've agreed to that refund. And I think that's the end of business. Is that right? Anything else? We're
Seems
done.
like.
That's the end.
I make a
Okay,
motion to adjourn.
thank you.
Second.
And great. And I assume we're all in favor. So thank you and see you all in a month.
All right, thank you.
Very good.
I
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.